Welcome to The Reset, a weekly dispatch of experiences and takes on performance and modern care. For the athlete, the practitioner, and the thinker, we break down recovery, health, and performance systems to reshape the conversation around wellness. Hello everyone and welcome back to The Reset. In this week's episode, we'll be talking about the cardiovascular system in a part 2 of the 2-part series this month. I hope you all had a chance to read over our last episode's write-up on the foundational knowledge of the cardiovascular system, and I hope it wasn't too detailed for you, as we can get pretty technical with these. This post will be jumping right back into the depths of the cardiovascular system's role in specifically soft tissue healing and effects on performance when rehabbing injuries. We will also cover how this system is directly affected by manual therapy and other manual therapy modalities in treatment and the stages of healing those treatments assist in. Manual therapy is my gig, something I've grown to rely on for more acute and subacute injury management with all my patients. One of the skills you learn as a manual therapist is being able to manipulate soft tissue in just the right ways in order to enable the body to heal and produce regenerative effects on its own. The way I see it, the body, if generally healthy, with no absences of chronic pathologies or illnesses, has the ability to heal itself, given the right environment. But we must provide it with the right environment. The Reset, Episode 38, The Cardiovascular System Part 2, How Injury and Performance Share Processes. Part 1, Tissue Healing During Injury. All right, let's talk injury. We've all sustained our own fair share, I'm sure. And though we may not all share the exact type or location of injury, we may share something close to the same experience. Wondering when and if we'll be able to feel the same as we did prior to the injury, having to go through the rigors of rehab only to regain slightly more rigid forms of our former function. If we're lucky, we get the circumstances just right enough to come out the other end with advanced function and in a better spot than we entered it. Even saying that out loud, I'm not totally certain this is the truth and something we can all relate on. But one thing I do know for sure, trying to figure out what the state of that injury is along with its healing process can be an elusive process. So we shine a light. To bring this back around to our topic, and generally speaking, tissue health is a coordinated biological process that is heavily dependent on the cardiovascular system. First, we see a protective mechanism take place. Following injury, blood vessels respond immediately through that process that we talked about last time, vasoconstriction. This is to limit blood loss while the platelets aggregate to form a clot and begin the process of something called hemostasis. Though this early stage is reactive, it's intuitively and immediately set up for the repair phase to follow. The inflammatory phase follows that, marked by an increased blood flow to the injured area through the other process we talked about last time, vasodilation. Contrary to the first stage and its constriction of blood flow, the expansion of the blood vessels and rise in local circulation in this stage finally delivers that oxygen, the nutrients with it, with the immune cells and signaling molecules, necessary for tissue cleanup and defense. The white blood cells remove damaged tissue and cellular debris, while growth factors begin directing the next phase of regeneration. Although inflammation is often viewed negatively, it is a necessary part of healing when properly regulated. As healing progresses into what's called the proliferation phase, circulation remains central. Note, the proliferation stage of healing generally takes place within 4 to 24 days of the injury and is highlighted by its focus of regenerating tissue with collagen, blood vessels, and new granulated tissue. This stage develops new capillaries as they grow from the existing ones in the area. This happens through a process called angiogenesis, and it improves blood supply to the recovering tissue. Fibroblasts produce collagen, connective tissue is laid down, and repair structures begin to restore integrity in muscle, tendon, ligament, and fascial tissues. That's all very technical, but basically speaking, the old damaged tissue is removed and replaced with new, somewhat virgin tissue. And it can be delicate at first, and this process can take up to a couple months. If anybody ever tells you that there's no use for manual treatment in some form or movement that early in the injury stage or healing stages, they're simply wrong, and you should probably search for better advice. This stage of your healing journey is the most sensitive to change and highly influenced by both nutrient delivery and mechanical loading that can be brought about by both manual and physical intervention. By improving the blood flow locally, as well as flushing blood flow and lymphatic flow systematically, we can help influence the process of healing in the right direction. Applying the right protocols for this is where the art is, and as many may dismiss, the art of manual work, if done correctly, can tremendously impact this naturally occurring process. Remember, it's about setting up the environment. When combined with strategic mechanical loading, aka muscular contractions or exercise, in the right tension and resistance, we can significantly enhance the body's ability to heal. The remodeling phase may continue for months, as I said, so as the tissue reorganizes and strengthens in response to stress, collagen fibers will align, and vascular density may normalize, and tissue gradually regains that function as it connects. This is where the graded movement and exercise become particularly important, as appropriate loading can, like I said, improve circulation, support that modeling of the tissue, and influence the quality of long-term recovery by the way it's laid down. Though manually, massage treatment and electroacupuncture has been proven to help the body align that collagen in a more organized fashion as the process goes on and as the process is happening, not afterwards. So realigning collagen and reorganizing scar tissue, breaking scar tissue down, these are things you might hear a lot about. It's not possible through mechanical stress from an external force, so by hands. What needs to happen is that manual technique, those manual treatments need to help influence the internal environment of the body as it lays down those fibers by itself. It can only do that during the stage of proliferation and remodeling, not after. Healing, therefore, is not simply a local tissue event, isolated, but rather a vascular and systemic process, and it's shaped by blood flow, autonomic regulation, the nervous system, which we'll talk about next, immune activity, and movement. Part 2, the autonomic nervous system. The autonomic nervous system regulates many of the processes that keep the cardiovascular system functioning moment to moment, often outside conscious awareness. That includes heart rate, blood pressure, vascular tone, respiratory rate, and blood flow distribution. All of these are under autonomic rule. A lot of it we talked about last time, and this week we're going to branch off and talk more about this system and its two major branches, the sympathetic and parasympathetic systems, and we've talked about those as well. They work dynamically to balance out the entire body and its function. The sympathetic branch is associated with mobilization, your fight and flight, increases heart rate, strengthens cardiac contraction, redirects blood flow towards working muscles, and prepares the body for a heightened demand. During exercise, this response supports oxygen delivery and performance. And we arrive after that at what I think is the most important systematic effort of this healing journey, and the part that I see most often as the catalyst for the full success and rehab process, the ability for the body to fall into parasympathetic drive. Now, if you remember from our nervous system reports, the parasympathetic branch is associated with recovery, regulation, and conservation. It slows down your heart rate, it promotes digestive activity, and supports restorative processes in the body. At rest, healthy cardiovascular function is often associated with a strong parasympathetic influence and the capacity to shift efficiently between activation and recovery. And when rehabbing and healing from an injury, or even just recovering from training, this system will hold you back from doing so successfully if it's not taken care of properly. This balance is not static. Stress, sleep, training load, pain, illness, and breathing patterns all influence autonomic tone. Chronic sympathetic dominance may contribute to elevated resting heart rates, impaired recovery, vascular dysfunction, and dysregulation due to stress responses. Conversely, improving autonomic capability may support cardiovascular resilience and overall health. One measurable reflection of this adaptation is heart rate variability, often used as an indirect marker of autonomic regulation. While it's not a perfect metric, it offers insight into how flexibly the nervous system responds to internal and external demands. For the cardiovascular system, it does not operate independently of the nervous system. Rather, it is constantly shaped by it. Part 3. Blood pressure and its regulation. As we talked a little in the first installment of this month's series, blood pressure reflects the force exerted by circulating blood against the vessel's walls. This autoregulation ensures that oxygen and nutrients reaches tissues while supporting waste removal throughout the body. Now, this depends on several interacting factors, including cardiac output, blood volume, vascular resistance, and arterial elasticity, all of which we know. Now, the heart influences pressure through the volume of the blood pumped, while blood vessels influence pressure throughout constriction or dilation of themselves. But short-term regulation is managed largely through the nervous system. There are receptors in every major artery that detect pressure changes and adjust to things like heart rate and muscle tone. This allows blood pressure to remain relatively stable during postural changes, exercise, and daily activity. And when we load the body, all of these systems have to communicate to improve function, not only locally, but systemically. That can be a major oversight in a lot of programs for rehab and performance. So ensuring that you're improving not only focused efforts on the injured site alone, but also the entire system is the key to improving your function beyond the level that you left it prior to injury, which is the key of any rehab program, not just to get back to where you left off, but better than. Exercise creates acute increases in blood pressure to meet that demand, particularly systolic pressure during the exertion phase of your exercise. Yet chronic exercise often improves blood pressure regulation through vascular adaptations, improved endothelial function, and autonomic balance, and reduced peripheral resistance, which is all the stuff we talked about last week and we are now masters of. When regulation becomes impaired, chronically elevated blood pressure can increase strain on your heart and vasculature, contributing over time to cardiovascular disease risk. And for that reason, blood pressure is not simply a number to monitor, but a reflection of a broader cardiovascular function and your health. And understanding blood pressure as a dynamic regulatory process rather than an isolated metric changes how we think about both health and performance, and therefore should shape the way you approach your health in both an injured and a healed state. Conclusion. I tried my hardest when creating this blog to speak from my experience and let my personality show through when we dive into these topics. And though sometimes I feel like we can get pretty heavy in the terminology and science of it all, I think we're doing a pretty good job of towing the line between science and soul, so to speak. So if we could take anything from these blogs and this month's series specifically, it's this. The information we have on the body is vast. There's a lot to learn. Hell, I'm still learning after almost 12 years of experience working in high performance care. But knowing that, there's still a lot about the way the body can adapt and change that we don't know yet. There are many ways to manage injury and good health or performance. What works perfectly for you will work perfectly fine. Generally speaking, the effort we get out of our care is reflective of the effort we put into it. And with that, I leave you until next month. In health and performance, Alex. Also, don't forget to check out my Discord if you haven't already, guys. It's where we can all gather as colleagues in this journey and share thoughts, ideas, and questions. The link for that is below at the end of the post on Substack. You can find it at theresetblog.substack.com. Thanks a lot.